Well, welcome back, all you beautiful Texans. It's the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. My next guest is one of the guys we lean on when we have legal questions, Jeremy Rosenthal from TexasDefenseFirm.com. Welcome back to the show. As far as the commutations and the pardons and the whatnot, are you okay over there? Are you on a saddle or something?
No. We got it's holiday magic, James. It's holiday magic, but we're good. Yes, fire away.
Yeah, well, we talked about this before when you were on like a week or two ago, and it really is broad, the power that he has to pardon or commute sentences. But the way they're talking about blanket pardons, let me ask you this. I've seen several people throw out the idea he should just pardon all the illegal immigrants that are here, all of the 11 million people. Can he do that? Just say, hey, everyone who did this crime and over the last whatever years, you're absolved, or don't even put a time limit on it. Just say all illegal immigrants. Boom, you're pardoned.
I thought of this morning. I was reading yesterday's Dallas Morning News, and yesterday in history, December 25th, 1868, President Andrew Johnson pardoned anybody who had participated in the Civil War on the side of the Confederacy, or who, it was very broad, who assisted the Confederacy. Now, we don't know. So let's say, for argument's sake, and let's put our lawyer nerd hat on here. Let's say Joe Biden says, anybody who is in this country illegally, I pardon you of any federal crimes that you committed when you came over. Okay, let's say that happens. Then the way you would test that is you would prosecute somebody. They would file a motion to dismiss saying, I have been pardoned, and then you would litigate that. And then it would go up to the Supreme Court, potentially, and the Supreme Court would say this is fair or foul. But again, what you have to remember is the Constitution is 14 pages, a 28-point font with pictures. The traffic code has a lot more detail in it about your bumper lights and how high they have to be off the ground. It's just a very broad stroke of power for the executive.
And so with that answer, I think that was a yes. He could just say, boom, all of you illegals are now pardoned.
If he's listening, man, you just gave him an idea. I've never heard that before or thought of that. So maybe, I don't know, if he listens to the best radio station in the U.S. of A. During rush hour on his way home. Yeah, right. I mean, maybe. I think he could. We don't know these things. He could try.
Yeah, so that would be interesting. I could see him doing it. Anybody. I'm surprised Obama didn't do it, really. I'm surprised Bill Clinton didn't do it. But moving on, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was this Kay Granger situation. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't have anything bad to say about Kay Granger. She's a legend around here, just breaking barriers throughout my entire life. I've seemed to have known this woman and what she was up to, except for the last 6 months. We hadn't heard from her. Mm-hmm. So now some people are saying that should be illegal, or there should be some sort of mechanism to where if you can't do your job, you can't keep your job. But just like the Constitution's quiet or pretty vague on the pardons, it's pretty silent on this part too.
Yeah, I think that power is delegated back to the state, and it happens. Where you run into these issues. You've seen it happen. You've seen several senators that have been very elderly, right? Recently, you've seen Mitch McConnell have some problems.
Well, didn't Dianne Feinstein just die in office? Like, she went through this whole process and actually, or she's still around. Didn't she die?
Barbara Boxer. I don't know. You may be right.
No. Dianne Feinstein died last year. Right. And so she was in a home for the last, whatever phase of her life. And no one called for, well, I guess we need term limits now, or we got to be able to kick her out. So I don't know if there's a partisan angle here, but there is plenty of precedent for incapacitated people to continue to be in office.
It is. I think folks are going to always look at that from the result base that they want. If you are holding on to a 51-49 margin precariously, you're going to wheel them up there and then grab their arm and give them a thumbs up or a thumbs down. I mean, the rules are there are no rules. So I do think that you would see that in the U.S. House. I mean, the GOP majority is really ever so slim, although you would think her seat would be safe. even if they were to have a special election. You would think that, but maybe that's for her to decide or her family to decide. But yeah, of course, the tallies and the votes are gonna play into that.
But there is no real mechanism to remove her. Well, I guess we could do the George Santos thing where 2/3 of Congress has to expel her, but they've never done that before for someone just for being elderly.
You know what, James, you're challenging me here. And you're gonna, and now I'm gonna. When we hang up, I'm gonna look this up. I'm not gonna send you a bill.
All right, off the top of my head, I remember Jim Trafficant and I remember George Santos, and that's the only times I can remember it.
Well, yes, but that's different though, because you're expelling somebody. I don't see. I mean, don't you think it's bad politics to expel somebody just because they're old? Or just because they're? I mean,
well, seeing as how the average age of Congress is like 111, yeah.
Right, the slippery slope there, but for the grace of God go I. And then you could say, well, listen, Marjorie Taylor Greene or AOC, or we think what's come out of your mouth is such nonsense. You've got to be kind of suffering from some of these things too. So yeah, we'll throw you up there next. Yeah, I like it, James.
Well, I also feel like I'm in the vast minority on it because I see a lot of people in the comment section or on X or whatever saying, you shouldn't be able to keep your job if you're incapacitated or if you're not, but there's no dexterity requirements for Congress. And like you said, even if you did replace them, would you get a different result out of Dianne Feinstein's seat or, Nancy Pelosi's seat or Kay Granger's seat? No, you'd probably get about the same amount of votes. And I'm always suspicious of when people try and come up with new mechanisms to remove these people from office because I know it'll be misused. The same reason people want to be able to come up with some sort of mechanism to remove Supreme Court justices so you can lean on them and get a better result. So I feel like I'm in the vast minority on that. Like I'm not in favor of term limits for the same reason.
I mean, yeah, you bring up good points. I mean, our system is set up to be frustratingly hard to affect any kind of change. And you're right. Anytime you add a new mechanism of removal or change, you got to be real careful. You got to be real careful that it's neutral, that it's difficult. I think you're absolutely right about that. And, of course, people are going to sort of cling, they're going to cling to if you've got a 1-seat majority or a 3-seat majority, or, if you've got an important vote coming up, I mean, yeah, you're just going to, somebody's going to wheel them out there and here we go, and that it doesn't change if you're on the Supreme Court or member of Congress. I think you're right.
All right. You can find his work, TexasDefenseFirm.com, or you can just go to the website and judge him based on his appearance. Jeremy Rosenthal, thanks for coming on.
Oh, yeah. Don't do that. But thank you.
Hey, Jeremy, I say that as a joke, but the reason why that joke is so sticky is if you type in James Parker WBAP, you know how it does like the suggestions, like the predicted completions. Like one of the ones that auto completes is James Parker WBAP wife.
I miss Parker.
People just want to know what we look like, or not me, but the wife, and probably you. So go judge them, y'all.
Well, there you go, man. Well, what I'm afraid of is that I'm so good looking that people are going to have unrealistic expectations about my legal prowess.
I have that problem too. I have that problem. The pressure is intense. It really is intense when you're this good looking. TexasDefenseFirm.com. Now they really are going to go check now that you said that. But I want to ask you the same last question I asked Jeremy Rosenthal. GOP Congresswoman Kay Granger, she's been in a retirement facility. Social media is going nuts. They're saying that she should be kicked out of office or there should be term limits, and I don't have a problem with it. Do you? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. If you want to be a part of the show, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. We're talking about GOP Congresswoman Kay Granger. She has been in a retirement facility of some sort. They say it's not a dementia care facility, but there's a family member who has spoken to, I believe it was the Dallas Morning News, saying that she's had some symptoms of dementia, some issues. And so she's 81 years old. And this year, out of the House's 517 votes, she missed the last 279. Now, she's been in for, since the 90s. And she's never done this before. The last vote that she had was July 24th. Just to give you an example, last year in 2023, even at the age of 80, she only missed 32 votes. She missed 279 this year. So the Granger's family told the Dallas Morning News on Sunday that she's been having some dementia issues. She's in Fort Worth at an assisted living facility. In a statement from her office, they admit that she's had health challenges, but they say she's not in a memory care facility. All right. So let's read between those two lines. She's in a facility of some sort, and it's not like a fat loss facility. And it's not like she's learning how to code. It's medically induced. But she's not the only retiring member of the Congress to miss more than 200 votes this year. So why the focus on her? Let's talk about Jamal Bowman. He lost his primary back in June, so he knew he was out. He hasn't really cared. He's missed 169 votes. Patrick McHenry, a Republican from North Carolina, missed 167 votes. Jennifer Wexton, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's last year, missed 152 votes. But in the last 2 years, over the last Congress, you've had 5 people die in Congress. 90-year-old Dianne Feinstein, I'd mentioned that with Jeremy in the previous segment. Sheila Jackson Lee, also from Texas here. She died. She was only 74. That was this year. And some people are upset about that, but why are you upset? There's no mechanism. There's no recourse to remove lawmakers from office against their will unless you have what was the George Santos situation or you have a recall from your own home district. But are your voters really going to go out and fill out petitions if they just reelected you in the last 2 years? What do you think? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. This is Amy in Fort Worth. You're on WBAP. What do you think?
Hey, I think that we want to make sure that people understand, by and large, the constituents, and I'm one of them, for her congressional district, we're not upset with her so much as we are at the system. Her staff, who, by the way, has been paid over $350,000 since July, from July through the middle or end of September, that they have not said anything. Anyone who has spent any amount of time with her over the last 2 to 4 years, and we don't see a lot of her except for when it comes time to collecting campaign donations and, running for office. She was made the chair of the Appropriations Committee at 79 years of age. That's a great deal for the folks in Fort Worth to have a hometown, congressperson in charge of one of the most important committees. But if you're not there and you can't get the job done because you're just starting to deal with some of the things that people deal with as they get older, your family and your staff need to step in, and there needs to be a system in place to keep this from continuing to allow it to go on, because we've been underrepresented. You mentioned the 32 votes that she, was voting before. I don't know if you knew this, but because of COVID, you were allowed to proxy vote. That was stopped by a Texas judge. It's now being heard by the Fifth Court of Circuit Appeals, so it may get overturned. McConnell brought that suit on. But, yeah, just because it says she actually made those votes doesn't mean she was in D.C. Just letting you know that part, too.
Yeah,
that's not about being mad at Kay.
Right. That's a solid point. So what mechanism, what changes would you make to fix that? You're bringing up some good points. I just don't know what the fix would be.
Legislatively, or there would have to be some form of law to address, I don't know, maybe doing competency.
I know, but that's the point. How would you put this into a law? Because if you put up competency tests, then you're going to get corruption of that, and it's going to be misused to get people out who don't agree with the system. They're going to give you a test. It's like, do you believe in global warming? Do you believe men can have babies? And if you answer wrong, you're going to get kicked out for believing the truth.
Well, having a mom who I lost to dementia, I know the slow progress that occurs, and I think that's something that she may be dealing with, is a slow progress. And doctors are able to see that a lot more clearly than they are just full-blown Alzheimer's that just comes on to someone. And I think that they could probably come up with some way of dealing with this. I don't think that, although I like the idea of term limits, I think term limits is just going to be a way for people to have proxy representatives in place. They'll be run by other people.
That's exactly what I think.
I'm not sure.
And I think we're on the minority on that one.
Yeah, I just think people, if they would think it all the way through, they might see, okay, that's kind of what we've had going on probably for a while here for some of these people.
Yeah.
They're not making the decisions, just like Joe Biden's not making decisions. Somebody else is running that show.
Right. And look, I think you get it. There's a machine that already takes care of all this, and they just swap out figureheads whenever someone new gets voted in. And if you put in term limits, it would just accelerate the process by which you swap out the figurehead. It doesn't do anything to actually address the machine. I don't know how you could write that into law without it being really easily exploited and used against us. And really, Amy, aside from her missing a few votes, like what's the negative consequences to the country at whole? Not a whole lot.
Well, if you go back, and I've gone and done the deep digging, and if you look at some of the votes that took place, like between the primary and the runoff for the primary this year, there were some very, very close votes on some very important issues. And some of those she did vote on. If it was defense related, if it was defense finance related, she found a way to get to D.C. and vote on those because Lockheed Martin is her backyard.
Right. We know it's in Fort Worth.
Industry. We do, and we understand it. We know how important it is to our community. So the fact that she was able to make it in and get that done, okay, that's good.
Well, look, the other thing that I think buttresses my argument is that when you reelect someone every 2 years, the voters can go say, look, she seemed fine when we voted for her a couple of years ago. Even if she has a couple of years of decline, she was going to step down anyway. We're going to vote someone else in. And if her voters in her district are okay with it, who are we to contravene their will? If this is supposed to be a representative republic, with democratic foundations, that's just going to be part of the underbelly of it that you have to kind of accept. And I want to leave you with this thought, Amy. I'm just going to turn you down, but you can still hear. This is Ronald Reagan on the Johnny Carson show, and it looked like 1981 or 1982, maybe 1980. But he mentioned how little we really have a connection with our congressman.
A poll was taken recently that found out that only 46% of the people in the poll could name their United States congressman. But what was worse, 86% of those who could name him couldn't tell you a single thing that he represented or stood for.
They just knew that he represented the state. But
he was a congressman, but what's he doing while he's up there? And the same is true at the local levels of government.
Yeah, Amy, great call. That was Amy in Fort Worth. If you want to be next, 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, I'm going to talk about this with the CEO of the Dallas Express, Chris Putnam. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. So we were talking about the story of Kay Granger. She's been in some sort of assisted living facility. She's missed all of her votes since July 24th. And it's always good to go to where the story started. Honored to have my next guest on because I've been trying to get someone from his outfit on for a long time. This is Chris Putnam, the CEO of Dallas Express. You can find him at dallasexpress.com. And do I have that right? Were you the first guys who brought this story to the public?
Yeah, we absolutely broke it.
How did that happen?
Well, we were actually in the context of trying to understand how the Congresswoman was going to vote on the continuing resolution, tried to reach their office repeatedly via phone and just got voicemail and nothing else and no return calls back. So at one point I dispatched a reporter to the district office, and he got there only to find out that the district office was gone effectively. It had been cleaned out, and we were told that it was cleaned out in early November, and nobody had been there since. And so right about that time, I started making some phone calls to some city insiders in Fort Worth and saying, hey, what's going on with Kay? Has anybody heard from her lately? And right about the same time, I went and checked the roll call, the voting record in Congress, and noticed that she hadn't voted since July. And so through the course of making those phone calls, got a tip that, in fact, she had been at this assisted living facility, which is also a memory care center, since earlier in the summer. And sent a reporter down there, and sure enough, they confirmed that, in fact, that was her home.
So the Dallas Morning News had a report on Sunday that they talked to someone from the family, but you guys actually sent human beings to the center where Kay Granger is? Correct.
To her office and to the center. And there's video on social media, I think it's in our original story as well, of a representative from the center coming out and acknowledging to our reporter that, in fact, she was there and it was her home. And since that time, we've actually fielded reports and sources, from folks who have family members and friends inside that center, providing us with some other information that we'll write about later.
Can't tell me yet.
Not just yet.
That's all right. It gives me something to look forward to.
It's basically validation of the fact that, she's not in a great state and hasn't been for some time. And, the family's trying to thread this needle between whether she's in a memory care center versus an assisted living facility.
It don't matter at this point, yeah.
It's also the same. It's one center,
Right.
And so the facts are, and it's not dispute. It's all over every major news outlet in the country, as I'm sure you know now. And Elon shared the story as well, which is why it went hyper viral globally. She's been in an incapacitated mental state for some time now.
So let's talk about Dallas Express. First of all, Joe Rogan.
What does it say?
Big fan.
Oh, it says that, but I'm trying to find out. I don't know what it's the Dallas Express. It doesn't seem like.
That's the #1 newspaper on the universe.
It's got to be. Yeah.
All right, he was just having some fun with you there, but you got reference.
They were using this as a source. They were using this as a source, and subsequent to that, like he's been educated a little bit more, and so that was a fun day for us, as you can imagine.
Well, that was cool because he was using y'all for this Planned Parenthood story. They're like the biggest giver of testosterone therapy or something or other to kiddos. So how did Dallas Express get started? How long you guys been around?
Well, Dallas Express has been around about 3 years. It's a nonprofit, independent, alternative media source. And, really the idea was that, our publisher at the time that he started, I've been there about a year, by the way, just right at about a year. The idea was that most of the local news outlets, the let's call them the legacy mainstream ones like the Dallas Morning News and the Star Telegram, had just gone incredibly far left. And as you know, those business models are rapidly dying. Morning News lost $3.5 million last quarter, and that was accelerated from $1.4 million the quarter of the previous year, the same quarter of the previous year. Star Telegram, the Fort Worth report says, has only 27,000 subscribers left. Total paid subscribers. And so he at the time wanted to get back to providing real journalism, real investigative local journalism, precisely like what you saw here. And, we get accused of having a center-right editorial bias, and look, people can think whatever they want, but we're fair. We get both sides of the story, report both sides of the story, and there's certainly nothing partisan about this story. Both sides of the aisle, both the left and the right, have picked it up and run with it pretty aggressively just because the details are so shocking.
Let's talk about another shocking story from the Dallas Express. Look, I can see why this wouldn't be touched by the Star Telegram or Dallas Morning News as enthusiastic as the Dallas Express. There's naked children at a museum exhibit in Fort Worth.
Yeah, so in fairness, I've only read that story. I haven't been to the museum to actually check it out.
I'm not going.
But I can tell you that the reaction's been pretty strong to that one as well. In fact, I thought I saw a post earlier today where the Tarrant County Judge Tim O'Hare is basically called for some sort of criminal investigation. But I've been for the last 5 days, as you can imagine, I've been personally dealing with a lot of media related to the Granger story. It was just incredible how fast it caught fire. I was literally having dinner here in Uptown Dallas when Libs of TikTok got a hold of it, and it was only a couple hours after that we saw Elon reshare. Next thing you know, there's 50 million views of this story, and I'm getting calls from the New York Times and the New York Post and the Washington Post and the Guardian. I mean, every major news outlet pretty much in the world has covered it. It's just been insane.
Well, if you need any contributors for I could do a whole anti-DART column, because I would just I would like to see all those tracks ripped up, all those buses decommissioned, and we just write an apology to the taxpayers and forget this ever happened.
It's like you have a picture of the whiteboard in my office. So I've actually been looking to do an entire transportation series. In the past, we focused on the wastefulness of transit and DART in particular. It's billions of dollars of debt, as you know, and unsafe. And just a lot of these municipalities, that have signed up for it historically want out desperately. And the problem is it's like doing a deal with the mafia. Like once you're in, they have you in a headlock and you're obligated to a portion of their debt that you can't even get out of. So we're literally about to, go down the path of launching a series on that front. So we'd absolutely love to have your feedback.
Yeah, I've always hated DART ever since I had to ride it for 3 months. I was a good little kid growing up saying, hey, whatever helps the poor people or eases traffic congestion or is more efficient. I had to ride it for 3 months. and I've only grown to hate it every year since. And since I started working here at WBAP, we're by the American Airlines Center, and there's a big train station here where there's an exchange. And I'm
not far from you, actually.
Cool. So I see empty trains just all damn day, Chris. And I just get madder and madder. It's like the Truman Show. They're just putting all this on for theater. They're not even doing anything.
But transportation bureaucrats love it because it's a never-ending source of revenue, but it's extraordinarily wasteful. So I'm actually famous in Tarrant County for being violently, publicly opposed when I was elected official over there to the TexRail, which we ended up naming TexFail or TaxRail, multi-billion-dollar transit project from downtown to DFW Airport, 25 miles, multi-billion dollars. And I literally got a hold of their own federal environmental report, which said that it won't take a single car off the road. In fact, it will increase traffic at rail crossings. And then subsequently, I was proven completely right. These trains are completely empty. All they do is stop traffic at intersections. We call them the ghost train. It's just, and by the way, that using their ridership data, which was ridiculously optimistic, it's not even close to that. You could literally calculate, buying a tank of gas for everybody that owns a Suburban for each rider. The models just don't work. And look what happened in California. Tens of billions of dollars wasted there on that particular transit project, and they just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming with them.
All right. Chris Putnam, DallasExpress.com is where you can find his work. Appreciate you breaking that Kay Granger story. Congratulations on the Joe Rogan mention and the Elon Musk retweet. The good times over there. We'll have to have you back on.
And keep reading. There's a lot more coming on that Granger story.
Okay. Well, hey, you're in my regular rotation.
Appreciate you having me on.
All right. Find a good alternative news source. And by alternative, I mean normal, sane news source, DallasExpress.com. DallasExpress.com. All right. Coming up, you're going to hear some sound bites from the news of the day, talking about inflation and the economy next. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome back to the big show. I had him on just a couple days ago, and Dr. Brian Ardis, you did such a my next guest, Dr. Brian Ardis from the Dr. Ardis Show. You did such a good job explaining what the heck is myrrh anyway. It was a great Christmas theme that I went and put that up on the WBAP YouTube channel. And I have a feeling that there's going to be people 10 years from now that check out that video. So good job on, what was that, Tuesday show? Monday show. Monday. Thank you, Garrett. Anyway, so welcome back. I don't know if you can top that, but let's talk about vaccines today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. How is everybody? And I hope everybody had a great Christmas season.
I absolutely did. So let's go back to Trump being asked about RFK and the whole vaccine situation by the media, because there seems to be the attempt in the narrative to paint RFK as someone who's going to take away your vaccine. But here's what started that storyline.
I think they're a threat? Two quick questions. First, on vaccines, do you want RFK Jr. to revoke any vaccines?
No, I want him to come back with a report as to what he thinks. We're going to find out a lot. We're doing two things. We're going to have tremendous cost savings that will come out of this. That's a minimum. And we're also going to have, and I think, very serious discussions about certain things, whether it's pesticides. Europe doesn't use pesticides, and yet they have a better mortality rate than we do. They don't use pesticides. In fact, they use it as an excuse not to take our farm product. We spend billions and billions of dollars on pesticides, and something bad's happening. Again, you take a look at autism today versus 20, 25 years ago, it's like not even believable. So we're going to have reports. No, nothing's going to happen very quickly. I think you're going to find that Bobby he's a very rational guy. I found him to be very rational. No.
All right. So your thoughts on that, Dr. Brian Ardis? Does that sound like vaccines are going away?
No, it doesn't sound like vaccines are going anywhere. In fact, as he is suggesting, like he did in his very first presidential run in 2016, he had brought RFK Jr. on and created a new committee to overview and collect data from the CDC about vaccine safety. So this wasn't something about him bringing in RFK to try to dismiss and revoke many vaccines and get them off the market. It was, can we get some true, authentic review and data about safety profiles of certain vaccines?
Well,
and
look,
most people just don't know this. No one's ever done that.
But we have noticed the pattern here that like when gun control people say, we don't want to take away your guns. We just want to study the effect gun control would have on your communities. And then people say, well, we don't want to take away your automobile or your ability to produce carbon dioxide. We just want to study the impact of climate change. So there's been a pretty solid history of whenever the government wants to study something, that's sort of a stepping stone to banning it.
Yep, and you often will see that. And so there are certain vaccines I have massive problems with. There are very specific vaccines with data that have come out of the CDC that directly correlate, and I'm not joking, there are reports that have actually been leaked out of the CDC that report African-American young men, children, boys, African-American boys, if they get the MMR vaccine before the age of 2, there is a 3,000 times increase in autism diagnosis than if you wait to give that same child an MMR vaccine after the age of 3.
The same vaccine.
So the same exact vaccine. So if you just delayed it and put it out after an age of 3 years old, then you see a huge reduction in the amount of autism in just that specific demographic. So why wouldn't we make changes to that schedule at the CDC to try to reduce what we see as reported injuries, possibly correlated directly to a vaccine? So, yes, there's information that would be helpful if we can get that data and then be more open about that data instead of hiding it and destroying it, which is what they did. They actually asked the executives at the CDC to burn their own research and destroy it.
Who is they?
It all. And they did that in actual 2016 and 2015. And this is actually William Thompson at the CDC is the guy who leaked these reports about the executives coming around and telling them, now that we put together that data, we can't let it get out, destroy it. Well, he sent it out to a researcher at a college in Redmond, California, Redding, California. His name is Dr. Brian Hooker. He is a research scientist. He received the information, has an autistic child who he knows from observation with his own child that the MMR vaccine did inflict harm on his child neurologically. And that kid is now in his 20s. And so he has been on the breast of trying to get data, this researcher, Dr. Brian Hooker, from the CDC, and actually had this stuff leaked to him in 2015. There's a great documentary everyone should watch. It's called Vaxxed, V-A-X-X-E-D, released in 2016, and they show you all these documents from the CDC showing they know it created harm, massive harm, neurologically for life in children, and then decided to bury it and not change when it is they tell people to get this shot to their children. MMR vaccines are between the age of 12 and 18 months. You should always wait till after 3 for that one based on the data from the CDC. We don't want neurological injury to our children. They know it does that. This is just one example of one vaccine that should be looked at and reviewed and possibly either taken off the schedule, removed from a combination shot. It's actually 3 shots in one. Maybe it should just be individual vaccines and then scheduled out at longer periods of time rather than before the age of 2 years old. That's when we see the most neurological damage.
Yeah, I've heard of people getting measles and even the mumps. I never heard of anyone getting rubella.
Nope, you've never heard it. And you're going to actually hear people say, oh, it's because of the vaccines. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with that. So also, Donald Trump does make a great point about pesticides, and I don't think your audiences know this. I would like to tell them something. Did you know that glyphosate, which is Roundup, weed killer, that you can buy at Home Depot and Lowe's, the ingredient is called glyphosate. Did you know glyphosate is owned by a company called Monsanto? Monsanto is owned by a company called Bayer Aspirin in Germany. Bayer, the drug company, owns Monsanto that owns this pesticide. MIT researcher Dr. Stephanie Seneff wrote a book in 2020 titled Toxic Legacy. It's all about glyphosate. 90% of all farmland in America has glyphosate toxicity in the soils, meaning it's now in our plants that we consume. Did you know that one pesticide destroys copper in your soil, copper in your plants, and creates copper deficiency in a human? And do you know what copper in a human is required to do? You require copper. It's on the periodic table of elements. Copper. It's one of the things that your body requires for life in little bitty bits out of plants. Do you know that when you rob copper from your plants and from a human, the whole society of America, the number one thing it does, copper is required in every cell to make cellular energy. We have trillions of cells. That energy is called ATP. Did you know copper is required to make ATP in every cell? As they've introduced more glyphosate pesticide in America, We have now chronic fatigue diagnosis out the wazoo. It is a massive problem. It is because copper is being destroyed from our plants. When we eat foods that are non-organic, that have glyphosate in it, it's already proven to deplete copper out of our body. It also leads to heart attacks and strokes in humans that actually eat those foods with glyphosate pesticides. Did you know that every insulin hormone made by the pancreas is activated with copper? When you deplete copper, you create an insulin-resistant human, and now you have rampant juvenile diabetes and adult diabetes throughout America. And this is why you don't see the same amount of chronic illnesses in Europe. They don't do this to their food. They do not poison their society with glyphosate and other pesticides. And this is just one of the ways you're seeing massive chronic illnesses in America at numbers no other country has. We have more human beings with 3 chronic diagnosed medical conditions than any other country in the whole world. And this is not a joke. 60-year-olds and older Americans, the average, 42% of all Americans older than 60 are diagnosed with 3 medical illnesses for life. No other country has more than 30% of their senior citizens. We are the least healthy. We're the most poisoned.
All right, I need to hit pause on my Dr. Brian Ardis remote. We're going to continue talking about vaccines after the break here. If you have any questions for the doctor, or you have a situation, I know there's a lot of moms out there that talk to me about this. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Vaccine skepticism is on the rise in America. Should you be opting your kids out too? We'll continue with Dr. Brian Ardis from the Dr. Ardis Show next on WBAP. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. What makes the vaccine topic so interesting is that there are people on both sides of the aisle, Team Red and Team Blue, that fall into this category. So this isn't a partisan issue, but it feels like it could have some sort of political overlap. Now, I feel like Dr. Brian Ardis is continuing with this from the Dr. Ardis Show. You know, I think a lot of people saw COVID-19 as the straw that broke the camel's back when it comes to vaccines. And, you know, there's a lot of reasons you could say they took it too far or, you know, it wasn't as effective as they said. And there was all kinds of lies swirling around that. I think what really creeped people out more than the actual data was the weird sort of propaganda push around it. This is Bill de Blasio. I'm going to play some audio from Bill de Blasio when he was trying to convince the people of New York to get the vaccine, his constituents. And he was bribing them with a burger and fries.
Free fries when you get vaccinated? I got vaccinated. You're saying I could get this? These delicious fries? Wait a minute. But there's also a burger element to this? Let me check with Bill Neathart. Is it too early in the day to eat a burger? No. This could be breakfast? Okay. I want you to look at this and think about, again, some people love hamburgers, some don't. Really want to respect all ways of life. But if this is appealing to you, just think of this when you think of vaccination. Vaccination.
What am I, a child? Dr. Brian Ardis, that made me lose faith in anything that was connected between government and healthcare. And I think a lot of people saw that and were like, all right, what fool is falling for this?
100%. In fact, that was just one of many interviews I watched, press conferences wise, in the news, where governors and politicians and federal health agency workers were trying to bribe people with some kind of gift, some kind of food, some kind of travel package, loan forgiveness. I mean, seriously, Krispy Kreme offered free donuts to people who proved they got a vaccine for COVID. United Airlines, actually, I think it was United Airlines, offered 1 year of flying for free if you got the vaccine card and could prove it to them. Student loan forgiveness, lottery tickets, federal student loans, home loans forgiveness. All of these things were offered as bribes to get people to get the COVID-19 vaccines. And the truth is, they wouldn't have had to bribe people if everybody was bought into the vaccine that was being introduced on the world. So there was obviously problems in the mindset of most Americans that were hesitant from the propaganda about the COVID-19 vaccines for whatever the reasons were. And they came out with these bribes to try to get people to do it. And it still failed. And even last week, I was reading the NIH's own website. They have published a statement that never before have parents filed for exemptions for children's vaccines for public school more than this year. And they believe it all has to do in their report with the COVID-19 vaccine agenda debacle. So this is not something that is new, conspiracy. It doesn't matter. The truth is they overstepped their influence with the COVID-19 vaccine agenda. Most Americans were not okay with that. This is a country of freedom. So now they're trying to bribe you, force you, mandate you to get something that not everybody agreed they needed, nor did they trust. So,
well, it comes from so many of the people that say there should be no one involved in a healthcare decision except for the doctor and the patient, or that's how they feel about abortion, or if you want to lop off your undercarriage. But when it comes to this vaccine, they're cool with bribes. They're cool with Bill de Blasio getting in, throw in a cheeseburger, throw in some donuts, and the hypocrisy, I think, was more important than the actual data and science.
It was disgusting, actually. What happened to the my body, my choice entire narrative for years leading up to COVID-19 vaccines?
Right.
All of a sudden, that's thrown out the window. What about HIPAA rules? Oh, now everybody has to be told, every corporation, airport, everybody has to tell their employer, hey, I got the vaccine. In order to play an NFL game, I've got to tell you I got the vaccines. I mean, what happened to HIPAA rules where you were protecting the privacy of people's decisions in their own health?
All right, so
they just threw it out the window.
Well, let's go on the other side of this. Tell me about the good vaccines that you don't have any beef with.
Well, that's great. Good question. All right, so which ones do I not have beef with? Actually, I have beef with all of them, unfortunately. More beef than I have faith, and I just need to share with the audience is this. What you don't know is the majority of people who speak in kind and in support for vaccines actually have never studied vaccines whatsoever. So, unfortunately, the ignorant are usually the ones, and ignorant means uneducated, are the people who like to defend the vaccines the most. And unfortunately, they don't have any data, any research. They've never looked at it. They just have blind faith in this agenda. I just need everybody to know I have 5 grown children in Dallas, Texas, who have all gone through public schools. 4 of them are adults now and have been through college even. And all of them have been given vaccine exemptions for every single year of schooling, kindergarten through college. And it is super easy, and I did it because all the risks that are published in science in medical journals about each and every vaccine, including flu vaccines, hepatitis B vaccines, Gardasil vaccines is one of the worst, these HPV vaccines. I mean, it actually tells you on the package insert, if you give your child the HPV vaccine called Gardasil as a youth in middle school, they tell boys to get it at age 9, girls at age 11. Did you know it actually says there your child is at risk for getting the HPV virus by getting this vaccine? I mean, supposedly this is the shot to protect you from getting that thing. They tell you we could be introducing this into your child. That increases your risk for all cancers. So for me, the risk for every vaccine, if you study them, it is not a vaccine versus anti-vaxxers initiative or narrative in America. It's actually the vaccinated versus the educated on vaccines narrative. If you look at the research, there's not a single one. The one that what might be considered the safest is the flu vaccines. And the truth is that it's only effective 4% of the time historically in everybody. That means it fails 96% of the time. So there's very little faith in flu vaccines even. There's very few research studies done at all. There's 0 long-term studies on health in any vaccines for any human since 1986.
All right, we got the drartistshow.com is his website. This is Dr. Brian Ardis. Thank you very much for coming on again, talking about vaccines this time around. Appreciate your time, sir. It's got a great book, Moving Beyond the COVID-19 Lies. It says it's in pre-order. Is that not out yet?
It is on pre-orders, but it is out. It's already been shipping. We've just had so many orders, more than we had printed books. We've actually had to hire 4 printers, 1 in Canada, 3 in America, to fulfill all the pre-orders. So until all of those are covered, and we're in the hundreds of thousands of books have been ordered, as they're catching up on all those orders, you will see that move from pre-sale notifications to in stock. But so far, we're getting caught up, and in the next week, we'll be caught up in all of our hundreds of thousands of books ordered. Go get yours today. It's going to be amazing.
How'd you sell all these books? What'd you do to promote it?
Actually, we went on to Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, and then through my website. And then we do media interviews all throughout, had a media campaign to make sure everybody knew this book was available.
It was the James Show. Just say it was the James Show.
It was truly the James Show.
All right,
literally put us over the top. You aren't kidding.
Thank you very much. Dr. Brian Ardis, the Dr. Ardis Show, the DRARDIS show.com. All right, coming up next on the James Show, you're going to have to stay put because we're going to talk to Jeremy Rosenthal, my lawyer buddy, about what's going on with all these commutations. And yeah, there's just a bunch of legal stuff in the news. We'll ask him about it next. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yay, welcome back to the show. Good to see you too. All right, calm down. You're not going to like this next story. There's, respiratory viruses and the cold and the flu, and now COVID's lingering. And did you know there are 3 states that have started with the mask mandates again? Not for the regular citizens, but now they're requiring it all healthcare facilities. And it looks like they're trying to do another pandemic. It worked so good in tanking old Trumpy last time. But here we are. Mask mandates are attempting to make a return across the United States. Yikes. And what's this new term they're using? Like a triple pandemic, like a quad-demic? I'm telling you, they're trying it again. Dr. Vince Callahan, welcome back to the James Show. He's my next guest. Tell me they're not trying the mask mandate stuff again, Dr. Vince.
No, we can't go back and do that again. Well, the reality of life is COVID, we lost our collective minds. We got stupid and didn't do research and didn't think about what people were trying to do. The masks don't do anything. So unless you wear that N95 big old honking mask, those little paper masks don't do anything to stop the disease. And reality is that even COVID wasn't as bad as it was made out to be. I mean, I'm not anti-COVID because I got COVID and had complications, but I didn't die from it, thank God. But I think that, we lost our minds, and we can't do that again.
Well, I figured the Cochrane study would be the end of all this, because the Cochrane study wasn't even deferential to the N95 mask. They were like none of these had any statistical effect that could be determined by the study. So how are we not just all in agreement here that masks were worthless?
Well, we should be in agreement, and we should, stand up as Americans and say, wait, I don't believe that, and I'm not doing that for me. It's just like I'm what's called a chronic Lyme patient. I got Lyme disease back in 2018. I can't wear the mask because I can't breathe, and I can't take vaccinations because they'll kill me. And when people hear that, they go, oh, yeah, sure. So this whole thing, we got to do X, Y, and Z. I'm not a fan of it, to be honest. And I'm not a fan of people in power trying to put something in place to keep somebody else from getting in power. Not that I'm a conspiracy theorist or anything like that.
But some of the medical community seems to be behind this. An article in Newsweek, they're quoting doctors saying, well, there's a lot of stuff going around. We gotta stay safe.
Yeah, if you wash your hands a lot and you take good supplements and you eat healthy, it's okay because your immune system gets strong. What makes it bad is if you do things that decreases your immune system. And then, of course, if you get around people, you're going to get sick. So if you actually take care of yourself, these things coming around aren't that big a deal. And they're usually over in a couple of days to a week. And then you've built up the immune system in your body so that you can fight it if it comes back around.
All right. So do you see this expanding outside of, and we didn't even say yet, it's in 3 states, New York, New Jersey, and California. Any chance this virus could spread? Not the virus, the mask mandate. I was just using a sloppy metaphor. Sorry.
I think people in liberal states will jump on it, and I think people in conservative states will go, no, wait, not so fast.
That doesn't make any sense. We have the study now. We have the science.
I know, we do, but people sometimes don't read, and people aren't standing up for what they really should do, which is sad. We need to get back to that as a country.
Okay. So these other viruses, the RSV, the flu, whatnot, I mean, do we do anything different for them than we've done for our entire lives?
No, we don't. The only issue is that we've got some of these super bugs that really don't go along with meds, and you've got to ride it out. And that's just where it is because some of these things are they're lab made, and we don't really know what we're playing with when we start manipulating stuff in labs. But no, I don't think we do.
All right. So do we foresee this petering out sometime soon, or is there about to be a civil war in the medical community?
No, I think it's going to peter itself out. I don't think it's going to be like it was in COVID. It's kind of like what we deal with sometimes here in Florida with hurricanes. You do all the prep and you think this is going to be a huge deal, and it ends up being a bad thunderstorm. And Floridians get kind of used to that. And so I think that's what this is going to be. You can only cry wolf so many times. And until someone goes, wait, this doesn't pass the smell test.
Well, the original COVID, they cried wolf for 2 years before people started waking up. So I don't have a whole lot of faith in my fellow man when it comes to stuff like this.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, I'm with you on that one.
All right. How do we find your work outside of WBAP?
drvincecallahan.com. Got some new books coming out, some new free downloads, and I'm always available for people to help them. So simple, just drvincecallahan.com.
Dr. Vince Callahan, appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I really despise the portmanteau where they're putting together quademic. Look, I'm not scared. I'm not scared of any epidemic or pandemic or virus or anything. You wore it out. COVID-19 wore it out. They could be like, hey, remember that virus from The Walking Dead? Yeah, it's happening. We should probably declare martial law. Nope, don't believe you. Don't believe you. Even if they do, I'm just going to go get a gun, and me and Garrett will just run around Rick Grimes in the place around the AAC, and y'all can take care of your neighborhood, and we'll work it out. We're not. If The Walking Dead happens, I'm still not going to stand for a mask mandate. There could be people out there chewing on the brains of homeless people down in the streets of downtown Dallas. I'm like, no mandates. No, don't change anything. You people ruined it. Coming up next, today's Kwanzaa, or one of the first days of Kwanzaa. You'll hear the James Show Kwanzaa Spectacular. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.